Hello, dear friends. I would like to talk about a passage in this week's Parashat in BeHaalotcha, which is quite confusing, I would say. I've always been fascinated with this passage, and I'm referring to the one in chapter 10, Perek Yud, verses 35 and 36, Lamed Hey and Lamed Vav. And it starts with a backwards nun, finishes with a backwards nun. And this is like a separation between these two verses and the rest of the portion, the rest of the parasha. And there's a certain fascination with these verses. First of all, Rashi brings from the Talmud the opinion of Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel that these verses are in the wrong spot. They were actually supposed to be in the first parasha, in the first portion of Bamidbar, when it talked about the Degalim, talked about the way that the tribes would parade in the desert, and of course the Aron, the Ark of the Covenant, would be in front of them. And when they would stop, the Ark of the Covenant would also stop and be brought back into the encampment. And that's what it seems to be talking about. So according to Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, it's in the wrong place, and it's only here to separate between two Pur'aniyot, between two, let's say, misfortunate events. However, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, the editor of the Mishnah, has a different opinion. He says, no, these two verses represent a whole book by themselves. And I'll read it to you. I will share this to you at the moment, just taking it from an online internet program. They call themselves Mechal Ke'amayim, and they bring very good sources. So that's why I'm using sources here. Now, the verse, as I said before, in Bamidbar 10, talks about Vayibin Aron, when the Ark of the Covenant was traveling in front of the Jews, the Israelites. So Moses would say, arise, O God, and may your enemies disperse, and may your enemies run away from your countenance. And when they parked and they brought back the Ark of the Covenant back into the camp, Moses would say, Shuv Hashem, return, O God, Rivavot Alfei Yisrael, among the myriads and thousands of the people of Israel. Now, in Masechet Shabbat in the Talmud, on this verse, Talmud says, why are there simanim? Now, the simanim in our work is actually a backwards nun to show that there's a separation. There are other simanim that were discovered too, but this is the most popular one. As I said, Rebbe says, that's Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. Well, the first opinion is that this is not its place, it's in the wrong place, and that's why the backward nuns are separated. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi says, no, this is not the reason. It's mipnei shesefer chashuvu bifnei atzmo. This is an important book by itself. And then the Talmud says, well, according to whom is this opinion? This is the opinion of Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachman and the name Rabbi Yonatan. On the verse in Proverbs, Chatzva Amudei Shiv'ah, that the world was based upon 7 pillars. These are the 7 books of the Torah, and this is according to the opinion of Rebbe. One who disagrees with this is Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, and in the Braita he says, the time will come in the future when this parasha, which means these 2 verses, will be placed back in their appropriate place among the story of the flags and the tribes going in the desert. Now, the same thing is brought in the Sifrei, the Midrash Halach and Bamidbar, paragraph 84, by Ibn Soron. Again, Rebbe says it's a book by itself. And the Sifra brings halachic ramifications, which means if you have a book of the Torah, now these 2 verses have 85 letters. If you have a book of the Torah, which 85 letters remain, it is still considered Holy Writ. So there's actually halachic ramifications. Meaning if everything else was rubbed out and 85 letters remain, it's still considered Holy Writ. Also in the Midrash Vayikaraba, 11:3, also in this verse, Chochmat Bantam Beita, God created the universe in wisdom, Chatzva Modeh Shiva on 7 pillars. He built her house in wisdom and on 7 pillars. And Bar Kapar says this is talking about the Torah. Hashem Kanani Rishit Arko. So what are the 7 pillars? There's the 7 books of the Torah. And then the Midrash says, is it not 5? Bar Kapar explains, you have Reshit, Shmot, Vayikra. Then you have Bamidbar until the verses Vayim Yitzhak. Then you have the verses Vayim Yitzhak. These 2 verses are a book by themselves. And then you have the rest of Bamidbar, and then you have Devarim all together. So the Midrash itself explains how you get to the 7. And Masechet Sofrim also, chapter 6, the first 2 halachas. It also talks about the nuns that have to be put here, or at least the hefsek. And then you have Midrash Mishlei, about it being a book by itself. Here it says, Sefer Yad Bifnei Atzmo. It used to be a book by itself, but it was removed or hidden. So does that mean that these 2 verses is all that remains from that book? It's an interesting question. So what does it mean, nignaz? Or nignaz can actually mean, according to another interpretation, not that the book was hidden, but these 2 verses, which are a small book, is hidden within the book Bamidbar. It's the way some people interpret it. And also in the Mishnah Torah of the Rambam, in Yadayim, chapter 3, Mishnah 5 of the Mishnah Torah, he actually accepts the point of view of Rebbe that there's 7 books in the Torah. Chochmat Nashim Lo'anta Beita, Chatzva Modeh Shiva. 7 pillars, these are the 7 books of the Torah. And they become 7 because Vayim Yitzhak, these 2 verses are a book by itself. So Rambam then adopts this view of Rebbe that there are 7 books of the Torah, etc., etc. So what is this? What does it mean? 7 books of the Torah. All of a sudden, there's 7 books of the Torah. The Sfat Emet says the 7 books of the Torah. That's why we count 7 weeks from Pesach to Shavuot. Each one of the 7 weeks represents another book of the Torah. 7 books of the Torah, representing the 7 pillars of the world. So, what does that mean? 7 books of the Torah. It's interesting that Rashi does not adopt that view in his commentary in the Torah, but others do. Let's look at these verses by themselves and try to understand them. What exactly is going on? Vayibin saw Aaron. When the Aaron went forth, Vayomer Moshe, Moses used to say, Kuma Hashem v'yafutzu ohevecha. Arise, O God, and your enemies will disperse, and your enemies shall run away from your countenance. That's the first one. Because we know that the Aaron went before the encampment. And it also fought the battles. All the battles of Israel, the Aaron, the Ark of the Covenant, went in front of the people. It's as if the Ark of the Covenant, you might say, destroyed the root of that people, their spiritual root, and for the rest of the people, it was just a domino effect, like a house of cards. The war would be over because of what the Aaron, the Ark of the Covenant, would do before the Machaneh, before the encampment. And when they came back, Uvnu Choyomar, when they came back and they encamped, Shuva Hashem Rivavot Alfei Yisrael, O God, go back among the thousands, the myriads and the thousands of Israel. And Ibn Ezra explains it's missing a bait. Bir Rivavot Alfei Yisrael. go back among the people of Israel. Just like it says in Shmot, V'asuli mikdash v'shachanti b'tocham, I shall make for me a sanctuary and I shall dwell among them. So God tells the people to make a sanctuary, but he dwells among the people. So here too, when the Aaron goes back into the encampment, the presence of God, what's called the Shekhinah, dwells among the people, not inside the Aaron. This is a very potent idea. But the interesting thing of this idea too, what if you don't have an Aaron? So if you don't have the Ark of the Covenant, still, the Shekhinah, the divine presence, is among the people of Israel. That would mean even today when we go out to war, to battle, the Shekhinah, the divine presence, is among the people of Israel. All the people, those who go out to battle and those who are behind. Those who are at the front and those who are at the back. That's why it's so important to be unified and be together. Because our unity is our strength and even our spiritual strength. And God fights our battles for us when we are unified in our cause and the righteousness of our cause. Shuva Hashem Rivavot Alfei Yisrael. And the Torah says in Dvarim, Vayamachanecha Kadosh. That's why the encampment has to be holy. It has to be sanctified, the war encampment, because we are protecting the people of Israel and we're doing God's bidding. Jews don't go to war just for going to war. We go to protect ourselves, to protect lives, protect our families against terrorism, against dictators without bounds. These are the wars that we fight. Wars for human freedom, for human dignity, for our own understanding of morality and the sanctity of life. And the Shekhinah, the divine presence, remains among us. Shuva Hashem Rivavot Alfei Yisrael. Now there's an interesting hints in this verse. In last week in Parshat Naso, you had the priestly benediction. Priestly benediction is when God blesses the people of Israel through the venue of the Kohanim, the priests. And it's a three-part blessing. Verse number 1, Yivarech Hashem Yishmerecha, has 3 words. Verse number 2, Yair Hashem Panav Elecha V'chuneka, has 5 words. And verse number 3, Yisa Hashem Panav Elecha V'yisim L'cha Shalom, has 7. So it's a number line of 3, 5, 7, jumping by 2s. Here too, in this week's Parsha, Moses, when the Ark of the Covenant is in front, and when it comes back, he says 2 sayings, the first one of 5 words, and the second one of 7. The 5 words we mentioned before, Kuma Hashem be'afutzu oivecha. Excuse me, the 7 first. Kuma Hashem be'afutzu oivecha ve'yinusu misanecha mipanecha. When it comes back, it's verse 7. And then uvnucho yamar, when it goes out, it's 7, and when it comes back, it's 5. Shuv Hashem rivavot alfei Yisrael. So in the priestly benediction, it went from 3, 5, 7. And in this week's Parsha, this book, which is talking about the Aaron, the covenant, the Ark of the Covenant going out and coming back, goes 7, 5. So 7, 5, the number line will continue, of course, to 3, which would be the same 3, 5, 7. But what does it mean? Well, you have a number line of 3, 5, 7. So in the Parsha before, it was God blessing. Because it says in the verse, V'samu et shmi al b'nei Yisrael v'ni'avarchem. They shall put my name upon the people of Israel, and I will bless them, God says, through the priest, but I will bless them. So that explains the number line. The blessing is, may God, Yivrech Hashem Yishmerecha, may God bless you and watch over you. Ya'er Hashem panav elecha v'chuneka, may God lift his countenance towards you and give you grace. Yisa Hashem panav elecha, may God shine his countenance upon you and give you grace. Yisa Hashem panav elecha, may God raise his countenance towards you and give you peace. That one's 3, 5, 7. So the number line, of course, if it's by 2, 3, 5, 7, we'll start with 1, because it's God, one God who is blessing through the Kohen. But God is blessing the people. Here, it's going 7, 5. It's going 7, 5. Of course, the next one will be 3. Why? Because on the 7, 5, first the Aron is going out. That's the 7. Then when the Aron is coming back, it's the 5. And it's coming back among the Jewish people, which are Kohen, Levi, and Israel. They're the 3-part people. They have the Kohanim, Levim, and Israelites. It's the 3. So it's the presence of God back among the people of Israel. And so the importance of this verse is to understand that God dwells among the people. And therefore, if the people we as the people, if we get things right and we do things right, God will help us. And the Torah gives us instructions how to do things right. And this is something which is to teach ourselves and to teach the whole world that it is possible for human beings to stand up for what they think is right and also to live a moral life. At the same time, shalom, shalom.